Hi folks, welcome back. We are now on chapters 11 and 12. So if you remember from the last video, Aisha, with the help of a boy from the market, had made it all the way to Dr. Leia's surgery. And it looked as though Dr. Leia wasn't there. And Aisha had got really upset about this. But at the very last moment, Dr. Leia came out and Aisha entered the surgery. So let's hope she can get the medicine she needs and make it back safely to Grandma. Chapter 11. I don't remember the next bit very well. I suppose I was a real crybaby, but I just couldn't help it. I was so relieved and worried and happy and miserable, all at the same time, that my crying got worse and worse. I couldn't stop, but at last I found myself sitting on the couch in Dr. Leia's consulting room. She was beside me, patting my knee, and her aunt was hovering disapprovingly by the door. Now then, Dr. Leia said, in the kind voice that I remembered so well, wipe your eyes, Habibti, and tell me what's the matter. I made a huge effort, swallowed hard, blew my nose on the tissue she'd offered me and tried to smile at her. Before I could speak, she lifted my chin with one finger and looked at me with a puzzled frown. But I know you, don't I? She said. I nodded. I'm Aisha. My granny used to work for you. Dr. Leia's aunt gave a loud sniff. Dr. Leia turned to her. I think you're right, Auntie. I can smell it too. Something seems to be burning in the kitchen. To my relief, her aunt shuffled off. So, Dr. Leia said, putting her arm round my shoulders and squeezing gently, why have you come to see me? Where are you living now? Your granny left without a word. She just didn't turn up for work one day. It was after a big bombardment. I was afraid something bad had happened. I told her all about everything then, the bomb that had killed Mama and how Granny had made us run away and where we ended up, in the big old flat with lots of other refugees. But how did you get here today? Dr. Leia said. You must have crossed the Green Line. I did. I ran. I nearly got caught by the militiamen. I was really, really scared. An old man saved me from them. An old man? In no man's land? He was wearing a fez and he had a cane. He looked, I don't know, funny, being there. She nodded. It must have been Abbo Baltros. He's quite famous. He refuses to leave his old home even though it's bombed out and there's no water or electricity. She was so kind, and the feel of her arm around my shoulders was so comforting that I knew she wouldn't think I was being silly. And I said, I thought it was Mama, really, looking after me. I suppose that's stupid. I just felt it. Not stupid at all, Dr. Leia said briskly. But now, tell me, Aisha, why did you take such a terrible risk to find me? So I told her about Granny and how sick she was and how her medicine had run out. She asked me a lot of questions about the way Granny looked and where her pain was. I could answer some of them, but not all. I felt ashamed. I'd never thought about how Granny felt or taken much notice when she'd groaned with pain. She needs to see a doctor urgently, Dr. Leia said, at last, looking worried. Surely there are some doctors over there, on the other side. We don't know any. We don't have any money to pay, I muttered, my confidence sinking again. I was hoping. Of course I'll help. Dr. Leia had opened a drawer in a filing cabinet and was looking through it. Good. I kept her notes. She pulled a file out and leafed through it. When did I last examine her? She was talking to herself. Ah, yes, the date's here. Blood pressure, diagnosis, treatment. She looked up at me again. And the medicines have only just run out, you said. I nodded. The worried look was still on her face and it made me feel awful. Please, Dr. Leia, will she die? Is she going to be all right? I don't think I can manage Latif and Ahmed on my own. Latif never does what I tell him to, and I don't know how to look after Ahmed, not like Granny does. We're all going to die, Aisha. It's in God's hands, but I think, very probably, that you've saved your Granny's life. She's extremely sick, though. Looking at these notes, I can see that the medicines I gave her should have run out weeks ago. She must have been using only small doses to make them last. She had taken out a set of keys and was opening the big storeroom that led to her consulting room. I could hear her murmuring long medical words, but I didn't understand them. She came out a few moments later with several boxes in her hands. I think your Mama is still looking after us, Habibti. I loved the way she said us. I was afraid I hadn't got the right stuff. I'm running all my supplies down. But there's most of what your Granny needs here, enough to keep her going for nearly a year. I looked at the life-saving boxes in her hands. There seem to be an awful lot of them. Like I said, we haven't got any money, I blurted out. Are they very expensive? You don't have to pay for a thing. She had put the medicine down on the desk and was checking it over. I owe your grannies a month's wage at least, and besides, I'm fond of her. Every time I think of her, I remember the good days. It didn't matter then that she was from one side and I was from the other. There weren't any sides in the good old days. She stopped. Her aunt had come back into the room with a cup of coffee on a tray. She put it down sharply on the table so that a bit of it spilled, and she shot an angry look at me. There's work to do upstairs, you know, she said to Dr. Leah. I can't do all the packing myself. I thought you said you weren't taking on any more of your hard cases. Aisha's not a hard case. She's an old friend. I'll be up in a minute, Auntie. She winked at me as her aunt left the room again. Packing? Are you leaving? I stared at her, shocked. I'm afraid so. I'm going to France. I'll come back when this horrible war's over. But don't worry, your granny's going to be all right. I'll write a note in case you have to try and find another doctor, but I don't think you will. In a year's time, surely all this will be over, and I'll be home again, and your granny will be able to have her old job back. She had packed the medicine in a bag and was about to hand it to me when she frowned. Oh dear, there's still one big problem we've got to solve.